movement at that time period than any other war with those that have been dead since that time. It's an interesting phenomenon because sometimes when we think about those contributions that we made, and he had the book that was entitled The Miseducation of the Negro, he wanted some accurate information to be talked about those contributions. And he felt that that would bring a certain sense of pride to a group of people in the redefinition of themselves as they move forth from the time of slavery to now, and he felt that that education would help. I would like to try to make a comment on the notion that how it was important then, but even most important now in the 21st century, because in many instances that whole idea of the miseducation has not come into full fruition because it has been misconstrued. It hasn't really been a history that has been forthright in all of the textbooks, from elementary school to junior high school to high school, for parents to then reinforce it at home, for the school systems to reinforce it in projects and in a large way. Although we live in the 21st century and we can Google Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and a large amount of information would just come up about him, but if you don't know about him, then you won't have the insight to even Google him, to know him. But so it's important, I think, for us to still bring that into our projects in schools so people will have a sense of pride about it. There are a lot of different documentaries. But it's sad to say, as we look at the Generation X in the 1980s, born during that time, or the millennium groups that's born in the 90s to the present. And I did mention at the outset, but in 1985, I was one of 25 scholars that were invited to Harvard University. And there we talked about that millennium group. And we said that they would be born and they would not have any insight as to what was going on during the '60s movement that would have given them the freedom that they have today in our present society. Now, as we think about African American History Month, I think that was the central problem probably Dr. Carter G. Woodson was having with conversations with other scholars at that time. Well, how do we bring some insight to people about what had happened for hundreds of years prior to a time of the brink of the 20th century that then we needed to know about?
And the impact that it has upon the 20th century itself.
Absolutely. And without that information, he said we'll be misinformed, miseducated. So he felt that that was an important thesis in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, that it would bring information, insight, pride, a willingness to want to be able to share with succeeding generations. So the question becomes, in an evaluative way, to what degree has that succeeded or not? And we were in '85 at Harvard University at the Du Bois Center. W.B. Du Bois, who was the first African-American to graduate from Harvard, and Dr. Carter G. Woodson was the second. You know, here you are thinking in terms of a new group of people that wasn't even born at that time, and they would not recognize it. And as a professor, I'm finding that to come very true, and I think it's probably that way throughout the United States. Now, this problem isn't just for African Americans, I think it is for the majority group as well. And I think he didn't want it to be just for just that one group to understand it, but he felt that that was at the core, but he wanted everyone to appreciate it. Therefore, we had this whole revolution with the diversity in higher education, where certainly the curriculum would be a little bit more enhanced to have the histories of all ethnic groups to be included versus excluded within the curriculum, so that there would be an appreciation. Now, the larger notion of that is looking at it sociologically as how we are made up of different institutions. And so you would think our government and people that will make it up will be a bit more understanding and sensitive to issues related